Hello and welcome to day 9 of Unit 4. Today we're talking about the Opium War. We moved from Europe to India and now to China. Last time we talked about the port of Guangzhou, which in your reading sometimes is referred to as Canton. Guangzhou and Canton are the same place. So we've moved on to a new empire, and it really is the clash of empires. The Qing Empire versus the British Empire. Question number 1, how did opium addiction become a problem in China? You guys know some of this stuff from the previous lesson. You can see on this map, Guangzhou is marked as Canton. It's the same city, just a different name. Depends on if you're an English speaker or if you're a Chinese person. How did the opium addiction become a problem in China? As you know, the addiction to opiates causes a lot of side effects. It leads people to poverty and even death. It leads people to crime. It increases the amount of people involved in smuggling. Over time, the number of Chinese people involved in smuggling increased. The addiction spread throughout the population. Not just the wealthy, but now the working class and the poor, everybody from government officials to police officers to members of the military became addicted to opium. You can see over here on the left what is called an opium den, kind of like a bar, but for opium smoking. Smoking opium makes you relax, and so smokers often like to lay down and kind of sort of pass out for a period of time after starting to smoke. It causes a lot of problems. Addicts can't keep their job. They stop going to school. They stop eating. They run out of money. It ends up with poverty and hunger and crime and all of those good things. Not good things. That was sarcasm. I hope that was clear. The silver triangle that we had talked about before between Great Britain and China and India originally was all of the British silver going into China to pay for tea and silk and porcelain. But once the opium addiction gets out of control, the silver is flowing from China into Britain. And Britain is bringing money to India, getting opium, bringing that to China, selling the opium, buying other goods, and coming home with tea, silk, porcelain, and a great deal of money. So the silver triangle kind of goes in the reverse direction. And Britain is making money, and China is losing everything. So the problem is, if you were the emperor of China, Emperor Dauguan, or his employee, Commissioner Lin, because clearly the emperor is not going to do the enforcement himself. He's the emperor. But his Commissioner Lin, what do you do about this giant problem? The giant problem here, in a quote from Commissioner Lin, once they, the smokers, have got the habit, they cannot rid themselves of it. And every day they have to smoke as often as they have smoked before. Because if they don't have a pipe at the usual hour, their eyes begin to run, their mouths fill with saliva, and eventually they faint dead away. The addiction problem is a huge problem in China, and it causes a widespread set of problems, not just among the addicts, but among the smugglers themselves. So Commissioner Lin has a number of options. Here's the Chinese emperor and his attitude towards the very snobby British. And on both sides, everybody has the attitude, the British and the Chinese, of why should we give in to people who are clearly inferior to us? The Chinese felt they were superior and that the British were being aggressive. The British felt that they were superior and that the Chinese were being ridiculous. So what do you do? Well, we have lots of options. Among Commissioner Lin's options are these 10 different things. These were suggested by various government advisors. Options 1 and 2 are to legalize opium. Option 1, clearly prohibition is not working, and legalization will reduce corruption, bring in revenue, and reduce the foreign trader presence in China. If we legalize it, clearly prohibition isn't working. Legalize it, make less problems. Number 2, legalize opium and make the British only accept tea instead of silver for payment. In addition to the advantages of the first option, this also would stop the flow of money out of China, which would help with peasants paying their taxes. It would help with inflation and all those other monetary issues. Option number 3, enforce the prohibition more strictly and arrest the opium traders who are Chinese. Option 4, arrest the opium smokers. Option 5, seize the opium from the traders, including the foreign traders, and destroy it. That's what Lin is doing in this picture here. Seize the opium from the dealers and dump it in the river. Option 6, arrest the foreign drug dealers. Option 7, cut off trade with all foreign countries. Just crack down and shut the borders entirely. Option 8, attack the foreign ships loaded with opium so that the foreigners will go away. Then we have options 9 and 10, which are sort of different from options 1 through 8. Number 9, educate the public. Make anti-drug statements. Tell people just say no to drugs. Get people to stop taking drugs, and then people will stop buying them, and then the smugglers will stop selling it. And then lastly, option 10, open drug rehab clinics to help people recover. Part of this rehab would be to make self-help groups where members hold each other accountable. So pause the video here and read through these carefully and pick out more than one of these options to do in combinations. You need to pick at least 2. And the most important part of this is the why. Think about why you think this option will work and explain that in your answer. Okay, now that you've picked out what you would do if you were Commissioner Lin, what did he actually do? He did do some of those things. He set up accountability groups for rehab, but he only gave people 2 months to get clean before he started arresting drug smokers. So arrest the drug addicts, and he punished them by imprisonment and whippings. He also started an anti-drug campaign to educate the children. And he started arresting the Chinese drug dealers. So he did a lot of those options from the previous slide. He also demanded that the foreign dealers turn over all of the drugs that they had. The merchants, of course, refused to do this. So he held their ships hostage. The Chinese Navy, as you can see in the 2 pictures on the right, held British ships hostage in the port of Canton, in the port of Guangzhou, same place, 2 names. And the Chinese police closed the ports and held the British ships hostage and demanded that they turn over all of the drugs. The British ship captains refused to hand over the drugs because they argued that it was their property and it was not illegal to have drugs on a ship in the harbor. It was only illegal to have drugs in China, so they weren't breaking any laws. Commissioner Lin, of course, basically expressed that they had the intent to distribute the drugs. They were intending to sell illegal drugs, and so they should be confiscated. This standoff lasted a while. The ships continued to be held hostage. They weren't allowed to unload onto the land. They also weren't allowed to leave. And eventually, a British official, a British ambassador type of person from the shore, came up with a compromise. He told the British captains, if you give up your goods, the British government will reimburse you. The British government will pay you for all the money you lost. So go ahead and give the drugs to the Chinese police, and they'll let you go, and then you can take it up with the British government to reimburse you. Commissioner Lin took his officers and confiscated the drugs. You can see they dumped some of them in the harbor, and then some of them they mixed with lime and buried in the ground so that they would be unusable. All right, this causes another problem. The British government has to respond. So Lord Palmerston was the British Foreign Secretary. He's in charge of British foreign policy because, once again, clearly Queen Victoria is not going to solve this herself. Her government official is going to do this. So Lord Palmerston, how does he respond? And this image over here on the left is what a lot of people want from him in Britain. The people in Britain are tired of feeling like the Chinese are looking down on them. People in Britain are tired of feeling like they're being disrespected by China, and they want revenge. They feel like Commissioner Lin destroyed British property. They feel like Commissioner Lin disrespected them, and that it looks really bad that they held the British ships effectively hostage. So many, many people want a show of strength. They want to show the Chinese, we're strong, don't mess with us. On the other hand, they don't want to mess up the relationship too badly because a lot of British merchants still want to be able to sell goods in China. So Lord Palmerston, the British Foreign Secretary, had effectively 3 options, and he could only pick one of these 3. Option 1, send the Navy to attack China and get her to pay the £6 million for the opium that was lost, plus pay for the cost of the fighting. This is because the Chinese cannot be allowed to just seize and steal British property and mistreat British citizens. We need to teach them a lesson. As someone in the British government said, teach them a lesson with cannonballs. Option number 2, stay out of it. Pay the money to the British merchants, let the Chinese handle their drug problem in their own way, and don't cause further conflict. Or option 3, pay the money to the British merchants and make a deal to help the Chinese government stop the importation of opium to China. Pay the money to the merchants, but then help the Chinese government to stop this whole problem. Take a minute, figure out which one you would do, and make sure to explain why you would advise doing that option. I don't want you to tell me what you think actually happened. I want you to tell me what you think should have happened. So don't try to guess what did happen. Tell me what you would do if you were in Lord Palmerston's position. Pause the video here so you can write your answer before moving on to the next slide. All right, the outcome. Obviously, the British are going to attack China. You knew that if you did your homework reading. The British decide to do a Navy attack and to blockade China, and the result is that Britain wins every single battle. There are 5 major battles on the coast of China. You can see them down here on the map. Those 5 major battles are all Navy battles at sea. If you remember, it's only been about 15 years since the British Navy has beat Napoleon over and over again. The British Navy is the best Navy in the world. They easily beat the Chinese Navy. Also, the Chinese are still using old-style sailing ships called junks. The British have new-style steam-powered ships, so they can sail against the wind, they can sail up rivers, they can go wherever they want, whenever they want. Additionally, the Chinese have not upgraded the weapons for their military in a long time, and the British have state-of-the-art, the most new, best, most accurate guns possible. There's accounts of the Chinese military using bows and arrows in this war against the British using the most modern weapons possible. The war comes to an end when the British go up the river to Nanjing, as you can see here. Right here is the city of Nanjing. It's a little blurry. The British take their boats up the river, attack Nanjing, and this ends the war. The Chinese surrender, and the British win. In the treaty, the British get the right to trade at 5 separate cities, and the Chinese are forced to give Britain the island of Hong Kong with a 99-year lease. It actually was a little bit longer than that. The British controlled Hong Kong until 1997, a very, very long time. Submit your summaries when you're done. These are the 5 questions. The assignment looks like this on Canvas, and your homework tonight is the Opium War reading. I'll see you next week.